Great news. Dirty Keto is now on Amazon. If you're living in the U.S., go straight to Amazon and get Dirty Keto. Watch it, rate it, and review it. If you're outside of the U.S., meaning Western Europe or Canada or Mexico, it's not there yet. Don't ask me why. Listen, those people made me put a PG-13 rating on it when there was nothing in it that would have caused that. But let's get ahead of this thing. Let's watch it, rate it, and review it. Go get Dirty Keto right now, and on with the show.
Thanks for listening to Vinnie Tortorich on NSNG Lifestyle Audio. Welcome to Fitness Confidential One-on-One. Vinnie Tortorich, founder of NSNG, goes long form with top luminaries in the field of health and fitness.
I am Vinnie Tortorich. Folks, your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but that's okay. Hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed, just like our guest today, Miss Andrea Lankford.
On bended knee is no way to be free. Lifting up an empty cup I ask silently. All my destinations will accept the one that's me, so I can breathe.
Andrea, are you able to hear that song?
Yes.
It's coming through. Do you know where that song is from?
No, I don't.
It was done by one Mr. Eddie Vedder. And you should know that song. You're the expert. You should know that song.
Okay, I'm going to have to learn it.
It was from a movie called Into the Wild.
I remember the movie, but I don't remember the song. Also remember the book.
Yeah, the book was even better than. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to come out swinging here, and you don't have to say anything. This is just me. I have a sordid history with loving and hating and loving John Krakauer. Back in the day when it was just idiots like me in our early 20s, hiking around, doing everything, I would read his articles, in Outside Magazine, wherever he was writing, and loved his articles. And then he did Into Thin Air, and I read that book cover to cover. The problem is I knew some of the people that were on that mountain that day. And the story they tell is nowhere near the story that John Krakauer told. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know her well, but I met Sandy Hill, the woman who he claimed, carried an espresso or had a Sherpa carry an espresso machine up to base camp. It was not an espresso machine. It was one of those, and I have one right behind me in my coffee bar. It's one of those little tiny, Italian, pressure.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like backpackers will even take them.
Yeah. Oh, I bring them to the top of Mammoth every year.
Yeah.
Because I like, as I like to call it, I have my very own little Starbucks in my backpack, and I'll pull out my little, Gigapower and put it on top of that, and within seconds I have myself a fresh coffee, right? So if she had someone carry an espresso machine, I guess I do the same thing. So guilty as charged. But I think he took too much poetic license in that book. But then everyone around the Into the Wild book said that he got it right. Do you have any opinions on either book?
Well, let me respond this way. I know how hard fact checking is, and he wrote Into Thin Air before Into the Wild, I believe.
Oh, years before. Yeah.
Yeah, so he probably learned some things about fact checking. You cannot take one person's word for it. You have to fact check it. And I've made some mistakes in that arena myself that I learned in earlier books. And then so like in Trail of the Lost, man, I really tried to fact check every little thing. Still sometimes got a couple of things slightly off. It doesn't really impact it for the average reader. But that's my response to that. I bet he learned between those two books and probably did a better job of fact checking with Into the Wild.
Yeah, well, it wasn't so much fact checking as much as opinions, right? He had opinions about Anatoly Bukharev. He never left that high camp after he got back that night in the storm. He was up there, right? He was part of it. And, yeah, it turns out he probably didn't like Sandy Pittman, too. Yeah, I could go on and on and on. I don't want to rehash. I've rehashed that so many times with so many people, and I got to talk to Charlotte Fox before she died, and she was like, yeah, and we don't know what he was writing. But, he's a great writer who somehow got one wrong. I was intrigued by your book, Trail of the Lost. My co-host on the Monday show, Anna Vocino, she said, hey, you got to read this. And I had to go to Washington, D.C. I live in Central Virginia. I had to travel to Washington, D.C. every day last week. I went up there 6 days in a row and for a medical procedure. I couldn't wait to get back in the car and put your book on again. So, folks, if you go, I don't have time to read books and this and that, and you travel or commute or do anything, this book will keep you right in there the entire time. And that's a testament to a good book, Andrea. When you're listening to a book on audio, and I'm an author also, you want to keep the person involved in a book the whole time. If your mind starts wandering, oh, wait, I told my wife I'm going to go pick up the book. Your mind does not wander with this book. And I'm excited now to go read Ranger Confidential, which is very close to the name of my book, Fitness Confidential. Right? Did you steal it the way I stole it?
Well, my publisher came up with that title, so they probably did. From Kitchen Confidential.
That's where I took mine from.
Is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, I took it from Kitchen. My buddy, Dean Laurie, kept saying to me, you need to write a book. You need to write this book. You've been in Hollywood doing this for all of these years. And you almost died of cancer. Those secrets were almost buried with you. You have to write the book. And I kept telling him, I'm not going to write about my clients. I'm not going to tell on these celebrities. It's just not what I'm going to do, right? And every Friday we would have dinner. And Dean's a big TV producer. He's done TV shows you've heard of. One of the famous ones is Arrested Development, right? Dean's a big-time Hollywood guy. And we would have a piece of fish every Friday night at this fish restaurant. He was like, you got to write the book. And then one Friday he showed up and he goes, I said, Dean, I'm not going to write a book. And he goes, you have to read a book. And I said, well, which book would you like me to read? He goes, Kitchen Confidential. I called him 2 days later and I went, I know exactly what you want me to write. And I sat down and wrote it. Right? So I think we both stole from the same guy. So congratulations. We're in a group all by ourselves.
We're in good company.
Andrea, this book, you basically take 3 people who disappeared from the Pacific Coast Trail and followed their lives, right? Followed what might have happened to them, got involved with their family, generally their mothers, stepfathers, what have you. At the beginning of the show, I played the song from the movie Into the Wild. Christopher McCandless was one of those types of people. I guess my first question is, what keeps you motivated? You don't have blood in the game. You don't have skin in the game. What keeps you motivated to stick with these families and go through this?
Well, for me, I think there was 2 things. I was a former park ranger, and I had a case that haunted me. And I think that where I couldn't solve the case, where I couldn't find the missing hiker to the Grand Canyon. And so then 20 years later, one of the missing, Chris Sylvia, reminded me of that guy that I couldn't find 20 years earlier. So I think that's what got me hooked in the beginning, maybe trying to redeem my earlier failure. But then as you start to meet the families and you see how hard this is for them, when you have a loved one go missing, it's one of the worst things that can happen to you because you have no answers. Were they murdered? Are they still out there? Are they mad at you? And like Christopher McCandless, right? He was disappeared on purpose for a while.
Right.
So it's just really, and also it's legally hard because you can't declare them dead easily. So there could be estate issues. It is just a horrible thing to go through. So I really, once you start to meet the families and get to know them and see their pain, that is a huge motivation to help them.
For anyone who's wondering what the PCT, is, PCH is a road that goes through Malibu. Don't confuse the two. It's about, I'm going to say 2,400 mile trail system that goes from Mexico up to Canada. Did I spot that about right?
Yeah, it's 2,650 odd miles between Mexico and Canada through California, Oregon, and Washington State.
And here on the East Coast where I live now, I live about 15 minutes driving from the AT. Right, which is a very similar trail except on the East Coast. And that one goes similar distance. And people get lost on that trail every year. People are gone, well, maybe not every, maybe you can tell us, how often do people go missing on these trails?
Well, to first go missing is quite common. A park ranger, we'll call that an overdue hiker. Sally didn't show up for work. Bob is late at the trailhead. He's not there where we said he would be. And those cases, about 97% of them, according to some statistics, are solved within the first 24 or 48 hours. Sometimes the person's found dead. Usually they're found, just injured or okay. But there's a small percentage that go into a long search for weeks. And then there's even a smaller percentage that are never found. So all these areas have hikers go missing for a few days, quite common. But for them to stay missing, that is something that is somewhat unique to the Pacific Crest Trail, which still has 3 hikers who remain missing even 8 years out from when they disappeared. The AT does not have that many that stay missing. Interesting, though, the AT Appalachian Trail has more murders. There's been about 16 murders on the Appalachian Trail. 11 of them are through hikers. And through hikers, someone who's trying to do the whole trail in 1 year or 1 season. Where the Pacific Crest Trail only has 1 murder, and that was of a trail runner at the trailhead.
Well, the trails seem to attract ne'er-do-wells. I spent a lot of time as an ultra cyclist. And I was out in California for all the years. And I did ultra cycling both on mountain bikes and on road bikes. And one of the biggest races that people would come from around the world to do every year was called the Furnace Creek 508, which went from, Six Flags and, right there and right outside of L.A., and it ended up in near 29 Palms. So basically you would go through Death Valley on a 508-mile trek to get to the other end. So since I lived so close to it, I used to train out there all the time. And you go through some of these little townships. Can't really call them townships, and the people who are out there in the middle of the desert in 108 and 120 degree heat, these people do not want to be found, right? It's kind of like people who move to Alaska. They don't want to be found. They're out there for a reason. Right, and I hate to make it sound like that, but there was some murders we knew about when we first moved here, where some campers were murdered on the AT trail. They weren't even doing the whole through hike thing. Just a couple of years ago, a guy was out there shooting people. For what reason? Was he robbing them? I don't know, but it stops me from going camping up there. I can tell you that. Why do it? Why put yourself in harm's way just for the hell of it? What is so attractive? You talk about these Yellow House people and this religious group and all of this. And I want to get into the Yellow House people a little bit, but what attracts people to go out there and want to do harm to someone else?
Well, runs the gamut. You do have kind of like the sexual predator type who's looking for vulnerable people, your serial killer type. Then you have more of the crime of opportunity where somebody's just unhinged and they run across you and they, want to steal your shoes or something. It's not really logic. Usually doesn't make that much sense sometimes, and they kill a hiker. And every once in a while, you have someone like a guy I wrote about in the book, James Perillo, who is a serial con man, kidnapping, who meets women and charms literally the pants off of them, and then he turns violent and mean and steals their money and abuses them physically and sexually.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting story. It was kind of a by story towards the end of your book, which was interesting. Even in Europe, my buddy and I were hiking on, we did Gran Paradiso in Italy, and then we went right over to Mont Blanc, and we did Mont Blanc. And I had learned that, and this is not anything against the Russian people, but they said be aware of the Russians when you sleep in those huts. Right. So if you hike in and you sleep in the huts, it's like be aware of the Russians because they will take your shoes, because most people will go in hiking shoes up to the glacier part where you're sleeping in a high hut. And that's when you have to put on your glacier boots because you're going to have to use crampons. You'll wake up the next morning and your glacier boots are gone. Right. And it's like the Russians took them. Always watch out for the Russians. Now, I don't know if this is just Russians, but the fact that people will go up there and steal someone else's boots. So what I did was I wrote on the back of both of my boots, those boots are always orange or something. I took a black marker and wrote, "I'm gay" on both boots because no one's going to want to be walking around in boots. Russians, they don't claim to even know gay people. So I wrote, "I'm gay" on my boots. Guess what? Woke up in the morning and my boots were right where I wanted them to be.
Yeah.
And I was proud to say I'm gay.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's the way I did it, right? I guess you can write anything on that, like.
Yeah, Vinny, that reminds me of one of the Steve Martin's routines where he says you throw up on your money.
Yeah.
Where you not get robbed.
Yeah, no one's going to touch that, but it's sad that no matter, you're out there in the wild, you're out there in nature and everything, and still there's shenanigans going on, right? And I could see it where rapists would go, I could just hang out on the trail and get some hippie chick that's going to just walk along. Mm-hmm. I get that, but just to go out there and kill, right? The three people you talk about in this, they just vanished into thin air. That was kind of the crazy part behind this. One day they're writing to people and they're doing all this stuff, and the next day they're gone, right? And there's some thought that these Yellow House people, this guy was looking to vanish anyway, and you could get in the system and end up in another country and tell your parents. Do we really believe that that's happened to the one guy who they thought that maybe happened to, or any other clues since the book?
Well, when a person's not found, every theory gets thrown out there, and you start to wonder about them. And on the Pacific Crest Trail, there's a group called the Yellow Delhi people. That they're 12 tribes. They are a religious community that their behavior qualifies them under definition as a cult. And they kind of try to get you to give all your finances to them and to not speak to your family and to live on their farms. And they see through hikers, especially on the PCT, also on the AT, as a recruitment pool.
Right.
And the through hikers call them the cult farmers because in a way they're kind of cool. They have coffee shops and they do organic farming and, they even look like through hikers a little bit, the way they dress. And they host through hikers. They'll feed them and house them. And so they try to talk them into joining the cult. And so because of that, and they were active in the area where at least two of these guys went missing. And one of the young men that went missing, Chris Sylvia, is 28 years old. His family says, he's just the kind of guy that would be attracted to a cult. And he had disappeared before. He had vanished for a few weeks in Costa Rica where he wasn't contacting family, and he was reported missing in Costa Rica. So it does seem possible with especially that one person that went missing on the PCT that perhaps he joined the cult. Now, I interviewed cult members. I showed them pictures of him, and none of them would admit, that they had seen him. So I tried to rule it out.
You're a person that can look in someone's eyes and tell if they're lying or not. I just know that about you, right? Did you talk to any cult members where they had to, they gave you that look of, oh yeah, I've seen this guy? Did you ever get that feeling off of any of them?
No, just online. I had one. She wouldn't talk to me about it. She said she didn't recognize him, and I asked the intermediate person, would she talk to me personally? And she said no. So that left a little residue of doubt, that maybe she wasn't being truthful. Hard to say on that.
Before we get into my favorite parts, which is the whole Taquitos and suicide area up, and because I've spent a lot of time up there, and I knew exactly where you were. And it's funny when you're that guy, when you're a hiker, when you're an outdoors guy, and you've done a lot of rock climbing and all that. You look at those areas. You were talking in the book, and it's like, oh my God, I know exactly where she is, right, on the trail.
Yep.
And some of those trails are pretty treacherous. But before I get into that, the truth is stranger than fiction. Am I wrong in thinking that? And there were two names in the book, and I don't write notes down. I just go from memory. There was a Dr. Vass, and there was someone named Voss. Is Vass the one that came up with this divining rod junk? And can you explain? To me, that guy, someone needs to just kick him in the balls. That's the way I feel. I hate to be that crude, but this is a horrible human being, in my opinion. What say you? Who is this guy? And why would anyone buy into that device?
Okay, so Dr. Arpad Vass, he's a forensic anthropologist, used to be affiliated with the University of Tennessee. You've heard of the Body Farm, and Dr. William Bass, who's very famous, associated with where they do a lot of forensic anthropology research on human remains, and it's related to law enforcement, how to solve murders, basically, or find clandestine graves. Well, Dr. Vass believes that he has a device that he's invented, that he can put the fingernails of your mother in it, per se, and it will detect your DNA even miles away, right? Even if it's years old. Now, what happens is these families are very vulnerable. They're desperate. They want to find their loved one. Like David O'Sullivan's family, for example, they're from Ireland. They're not even American. So they hear about this famous anthropologist he's done a TED Talk. He's got all the right resume, and he claims he can find your loved one. It's just going to cost a few $1,000s. They feel there's nothing to lose. So it's very hard to talk families out of using some of these people. And law enforcement has used this individual, believe it or not, on several cases. Hopefully they're not still using him. Because this can really throw a monkey wrench into an investigation, especially if it turns into a homicide. You don't want this kind of woo-woo stuff involved in your investigation. But yeah, that's to answer your question. That's why the families are just desperate. They're just hoping some miracle will come and solve their pain by finding their missing loved one.
Stop me when I get this wrong. This guy claims, and folks, I'm not making this up. He claims that you could take fingernails. Let's say I go missing, and they go to my mom. Hey, clip a fingernail, give me that, and we're going to take that fingernail. We're going to put it into my little device. It's going to detect your DNA. Your DNA is connected to your son's DNA, and according to this guy, even if there's nothing but a skeleton, bone out there, just skeletons of you. And if there's skeletons of you out in the wild, not to be gross, they're going to be scattered around because every animal came along. And as I tell people, look at a deer carcass on the side of the road. Go back 3 days later, all you see is a couple of bones. Every bird has come along, every animal has come along and taken their piece of that animal. You don't see anything left. The Society of the Wildlife has come in and taken care of it. That's what's going to happen to a human. Okay? This guy's claiming that from a helicopter from thousands of feet away, he can point this basic divining rod that has your mom's fingernail in it and find your dried out bones in the California high desert.
Yes. He's
Think about that.
Claimed to have found where a drop of blood fell.
Has he ever had one person found? Do we know that he's found one person?
There's some claims that one of his other devices perhaps found a person in California, but they already knew where she was buried. It was more trying to pinpoint where. So I really don't believe that. And so not to my knowledge, no. And there's been 30 cases or more. Now, there's a lot of claims of finding people, but not where there's an actual body. And, they'll go out and claim, okay, your loved one died right here. And you're right. The animals will scatter stuff, but usually there's something somewhere. Searchers go back and look, they'll find something. And gear, clothing, backpacks, trekking poles.
Right. Animals don't eat trekking poles. Yeah. Right. Look, you were even saying in the book that when he showed up, he went off to like a hardware store and bought some PVC pipe and some duct tape and started fashioning something out of that. What did this device look like?
It looks, I don't know, kind of like a weird homemade gun that maybe you'd use to shoot ping pong balls out of or something. I mean, I'm pulling stuff out of my head. It's kind of got a gun sort of rifle shape. And there's wires on it and a funnel and a little glass jar that the fingernails will go into. And he wears something around his neck that has, some esoteric chart with numbers on his neck.
So basically a Rube Goldberg type of just device is just made out of whole cloth, right? It's just...
Yes, and my feelings on it, he might disagree, but it's just a high-tech diving rod, where they try to douse for water,
right.
In the olden days. And so he'll even teach classes where he'll use wires and say that, when you go near a bone, the wires will point out the bone. This has been debunked many times that this is effective. Dowsing, but some people do believe that it works.
Yeah, and look, I guess that hits me. I hate predators, right? And there's one type of predator. There's the sexual predators on the trail. There's the people trying to kill people and take advantage of you and whatever. But I despise people. It's like these families are in pain, and you're capitalizing on their pain, and you and I can sit here and laugh about this fake device and what this guy's doing, but this guy is capitalizing on someone. And it's what we talk about in this podcast. I've done 4 documentaries based on that, how, people's good intentions. I say it at the beginning of every podcast. Your good intentions have been stolen. This is just a different way where your good intentions have definitely been stolen, right? You're trying to find your loved one, and this guy comes in, and it sounds funny to you and me, right? But to these families, they're going, hey, it's $2,000. I got to try it. It's sad.
Yeah, it's really not funny at all. Now, I likened it somewhat to working with the psychic, but I feel like when people work with psychics, they know. I mean, they go, I'm working with the psychic. I mean, they kind of know. And the game, I'm not going to call it a game, but they know the deal. But with someone like him, they're claiming that this is scientific when it is not based on solid science by any stretch of imagination. And so I feel that's where it gets kind of fraudulent or a pain or potentially harmful. I don't necessarily think it's harmful for families to listen to psychics because they kind of know. Everybody knows. But this in particular, and also, like I said, when law enforcement's using it, that is a problem because this could end up in court. It could be a legal problem.
Yeah. That guy just rubbed me the wrong way, every which way you could. We're going to take a quick break here, and then I want to get into the specifics of the areas I know about and ask you a couple of questions because you were a park ranger, and sometimes park rangers annoy the crap out of all of us. And I know that we annoy you guys back, right? And I don't try to annoy anyone, but boy, I've had my run-ins, I guess. Anyway, folks, Villa Capelli olive oil is something both me and a park ranger can agree on as olive oil. I'm pretty sure that everyone loves olive oil. But here's the deal. In the United States, you could cut olive oil up to 40% and still call it 100% pure olive oil. That's right. Our government allows these big companies to lie. There's some good olive oils out there, but I can't go vet all of them. But the one I did vet was the one that sponsors this podcast, Villa Capelli, right out of Puglia, Italy. It's the good stuff. I've known the owners from, almost the beginning. Anna Vocino actually spent time on their property over at Villa Capelli. And Paul Capelli's no longer with us, but his husband, Stephen Crutchfield, took the company and continued on. So Villa Capelli is alive and well. You want to save 10% on pure 100% olive oil from Puglia. Put in promo code Vinnie, V-I-N-N-I-E, to save 10%. Promo code Vinnie, no wimpy Y, V-I-N-N-I-E. And if you want to really save on shipping, spend more than $140 after the Vinnie discount. You'll be above $125, and they will ship it for free. Villa Capelli, let them know I sent you. We're talking to the woman who wrote what's currently my favorite book, Trail of the Lost. I did not expect to like this book, but could not stop listening. I didn't want it to end. And that says a lot about a book. Andrea Lankford wrote that book. Andrea, one of the biggest injustices I've seen from a park ranger happened in the aforementioned Death Valley. So there are two races that go on in Death Valley. I don't know if you're familiar with them. One is called the Furnace Creek. One is called the 135, the Badwater 135, where it goes from Badwater Basin, the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere, and also one of the hottest points on the planet, and it goes up to the portal 135 miles later at Mount Whitney. So you go from the lowest point, and you end up at 8,200 feet. It's fabled. It's the toughest foot race in the world. Are you familiar with it, Andrea?
I've probably heard of it, but not very familiar.
Oh, every distance runner, every ultra runner in the world wants to be. It's just an incredible race. The sister race to that was called the Furnace Creek 508. I just mentioned it started at Six Flags over in Santa Clarita, and it would go through the Panamint Valley and then cross over Town Pass and then down into the depths of hell, and then you would end up near 29 Palms, 508 miles later. And these are nonstop races. Well, a new park ranger came in several years ago, and apparently they sent her there to punish her. Apparently she was in paradise before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she was in Hawaii or somewhere, if memory serves me correctly. But they said, you know what? It's kind of like, we're going to send you straight to hell, and we do mean hell, right? And they send you down Death Valley. Well, they send this woman down there, and the first thing she learns is that there are two races that go on in Death Valley.
Right.
And she went, we can't have that. We can't have this. What? People could get killed on these bikes, riding along for 60 hours on a bike. This is crazy, right? She said, we're going to stop this race to study it. You say, wait, how are you going to stop it and study it at the same time? Shouldn't you let the race go on and maybe put some extra people out there and see how safe it is? It's a very safe race, right? Every 40 miles, we have to check in at a check-in station. My good friend Chris Kosman is the guy who ran this race and still he gave up the 508 because it was kicked out of the desert. It's now in Nevada, so it's called the Silver States 508. The 135, the Badwater 135, is still run there every year. But this woman put all sorts of obstacles in the way to make it as difficult. As a matter of fact, everyone who owned a business in Death Valley went to that meeting and said, please do not stop these two races. This is how we pull out of the negative every year financially. This is our Christmas. Every summer we wait for this. Without this, we would all be operating in the red. Please do not. And she was like not having it and put all these sanctions and did everything else. She's the worst type of person. And I think you know the type of person because in government we have those people.
Yeah.
Right. I go just as a matter of course, me and my climbing buddy, his name is Don Coddington, and sorry, but I have to play this.
It's the billionaire Don Coddington's Friday 5 o'clock blast off.
No matter what, whenever I say his name, we have to play that. My buddy Don Coddington, every year we go over to John Muir's favorite route up Mount Whitney.
Yep.
Right? Just for the hell of it. If we don't have anything else on the books, we just go to Mount Whitney and we do that. And we don't believe in skirting the rules. We always wonder, why is there one mountain where you have to have a permit? You know, you can go to Colorado, climb any 14 you want anywhere else in the country. This mountain has a permit system. For what reason, we don't know. You go to Europe, anybody can climb any mountain any day, just go do it. No permit, no nothing. Everywhere else in the United States, you need a permit for this one. My first question is why? Do you have any reason as to why this one mountain needs a permit?
Well, I don't know the specifics of when they initiated that permit process, but just hypothetically, reasons that it could be is if there's just too much. You just have so many people. It's like they went to a reservation system in Yosemite Valley because there's just so many people going all at the same time. It's ruining the experience for everybody. So that could be one reason, just to limit the use. So there's only so many people trying to do it per day. And that's also less impact on the mountain. Now, I'm not certain that was the case with Mount Whitney, but let's say it is. That would be one reason. The other could be for safety. You know, sometimes you have to get a permit and then watch a little video, you know, about how to be safe. It's an attempt to prevent injury and death. Like I said, I don't know if that's why they initiated it there. I mean, you want to talk where I get frustrated about permits is there in the San Jacinto, in the Forest Service area where you've been in Suicide Rock, where you have to have a permit just a day hike.
Yeah. It's and by the way, it all just seems to be in California, right, where they like to overregulate everything. Think about that. You get outside of California, you go up to, you go to Wyoming, no, nothing. You go to Colorado, no, nothing. You go to Montana, no, nothing. California, permits, day hikes, you can't do this, you can't do that. I get it with the fires because California will go up, like a box of matches. So I get the fire permits and all that in certain times of the year, and it's all good. But it's the only place where they're like, government is just strong-arming people who want to get out and do things. In a time when we should try to get more people out, they seem to try to cut people back on what they can do. Right?
I think to some extent you're right, but I think, Rocky Mountain in Colorado, I believe they had to go to a reservation system because they're so close to Denver. I lived outside of Denver for a while. I mean, people are just, hordes are going out to the trailheads and everything.
Really?
So, I mean, to be fair to these agencies, they've got a dilemma. We want to preserve for future generations. We want to open it for enjoyment. But, sometimes you go to Yosemite Valley before the reservation center, it's no fun.
Yeah.
You can't find a parking place. I mean, so a lot of people are like, yay, thank you for the reservation system. So it's tricky. It's a tricky deal, Vinny. I get it. I get frustrated too. Like, I think that permit thing in San Jacinto is nuts. There's just no sense in that. But sometimes I think it does work, that it is worth it to us to have a permit system.
Yeah, I see your point. It's just, I don't know. I just, and the other thing, and I want your opinion on this, the wag bag, right? You go to Europe, there's no wag bags. I don't break rules. I'm always saying you dig the hole, you do your business, you burn it, you cover it, you move on. California, wag bag, right? Well, what happens with the wag bag? I see people like you carrying everyone else's wag bag down because these people, it's like, okay, we want you to shit in the bag, right? And then we want you to carry it all day. So what people do is they go, this, even though you have it double, I've double bagged. You can still smell it back there, right? So people go, well, I'm just going to leave the wag bag here and pick it up on the way back. And guess what everyone forgets to do? So then you see, the person who works for the government carrying down every few days, they're coming down with hundreds and hundreds of wag bags, where all of this, if people knew, hey, you don't crap near a trail, you don't do this, you bury it, you burn it, you do all the things. Why isn't that? Do you think the wag bags are needed, or did you think this conversation was going to go here, first off?
Well, no, but I'm not surprised. Now, I file this under very appropriately, one person poops their pants and the rest of us have to wear diapers.
Yeah.
So you've got these like 5% of people who, come on, people, just walk off the trail, bury it deep. Don't leave all your toilet paper like flowers for all the rest of us to see, right? But because of those people, they're making the rest of us wear wag bags, right?
Yeah.
Now, the other issue, though, is I think the government shouldn't get too lazy. And if there are places where this is a big problem, or human waste is a big problem, then go out there and put up a privy.
Yeah.
Do some work. I call it harden the site. Maybe just go out there, and in this particular area, it's just a huge, big problem. So build a privy in that area.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be that difficult to do. Right before you actually, you know Mount Whitney well, I'm guessing, right? You've probably been up there 1,000 times.
I haven't done it yet.
I mean, before you hit the point where, say, you're now going up the, John Muir Trail or whatever, and blah, 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 it could be right there, right? Mm-hmm. That's at what, maybe 10,000 feet? And there's a nice area right before you get to Hello Lake. They could do it right there. Mm-hmm. And it would take care of a lot of problems.
Yep.
But no one seems, and again, that would be easy to do. It's better than, someone who's working for minimal money to carry someone else's crap out of the woods. It just seems weird to me.
Well, and I'm a nurse too, as you know. There's some hygiene issues with all of us carrying poop around, with our food and stuff. And so it's a dilemma, but I do think they need to think about, doing the work and putting privies in certain areas. I just went to Boundary Waters Wilderness area in Minnesota and did a wonderful 6-day canoe trip with portaging and everything. Well, they have like 200 plus designated campsites with a privy.
Yeah.
So there's a privy there. The Appalachian Trail, there's a lot of privies where you can go. So if there's an area where this is a problem, maybe not make everybody carry their poop. I mean, there's some, like a cave, there's some very delicate areas, Vinny, where we need to carry our stuff out.
Yeah.
That does exist, just so everybody knows.
Oh, look, and I'm not a scofflaw here. I'm a nature lover. I learned a long time ago how to take a crap in the woods. I know that sounds funny, but, and perfectly honest, I did the wag bag thing one time on Whitney where I had to carry it out, and I went, never again, right? And since then, I think, I haven't had to go too many times up there, but when I have gone, I just do it proper. I go dig the hole, I drop the toilet paper in it, I burn it, I cover it, boom, done.
Yeah.
It's the way, I'm sorry, I can't help it. Zippo lighter takes care of the problem. You're done.
Yeah. Well, you just when there's fire danger, though, it's better just to bury it, not burn it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people have caused fires by trying to burn their toilet paper. But just stuff it under your stuff so it's weighed down. If you leave your toilet paper on top, it's light. But if you take a stick and just put it under your poop, the poop will weigh it down.
Did you ever think we were going there today? Yeah. Tequeets, that area, Idlewild holds great memories for me. I went to the mountain bike world solo championships there, 24-hour racing way back in mid-90s. I know the town well. Also, I fell on Suicide. The rock is called Suicide. I had a 60-footer there and took all the skin off of my hand and one of my thighs on the way down. Folks, when you fall, I didn't fall and hit the ground. So I was 30 feet past my last protection, and there was supposed to be protection drilled into that wall somewhere. And I kept yelling down to my climbing partner who had me on the rope, and he kept saying, it's there, it's there. I was here last year, and I couldn't find it, and the sun was coming right down from that rock, and I lost one of my footholds. And when you fall, you're falling at over 100 miles an hour. So think of it when you're skimming onto the rock, that it's like going down an asphalt road at 100 miles an hour when your thigh and your hands are hitting it. Not very comfortable. I lost some blood that day. There was a nurse at the bottom. When I had to rappel down with the hand I never wrapped down with. When we finally got down to the bottom, she said, well, at least you're alive. There was a guy who fell right there about a month ago, and he did the thing where he threw his body back like that. So when his rope stopped him, it flipped him upside down, and he crashed his head on the rock, and he left his gray matter right there on Suicide. It's a dangerous rock. I think the route we were on was maybe a 511. Wasn't the most difficult in the world. But I have memories of that place, and I have memories of hiking in and hiking out and knowing those areas. It's a very rough part of the Pacific Coast Trail. But 3 people being lost in that same area in a short period of time, right? They were all right in the same area.
Well, no, 3, they're scattered. 2 were in Southern California, 1 in the San Jacinto, and 1 in Washington State.
Okay.
But the San Jacinto Mountains has about 5 people who remain missing. Only one of them is a thru hiker. There was a thru hiker who just went missing for several months, and he was finally found there on the other side of San Jacinto near I-10. For those of you between LA and Palm Springs, that side of that mountain. It is a dangerous area, and, the Native Americans believe there's a demon that is vindictive and lives there, and, if he finds you alone up on that mountain, he might imprison you and keep you in a rocky cave forever.
Yeah, that's always a crazy thought and idea, but look, people believe that kind of thing. I always warn people who don't really know what they're doing. Baldy wasn't very far. I mean, that's Mount San Jacinto. That's the highest point in Southern California. I think it's 11,000. Do you know what it is? Is it 11,000?
It's just over 11,000, the San Jacinto Peak.
Yeah. And, that's a dangerous peak. People, I call it the natural stair climber, because when if you go over Devil's Backbone and go up that way, you feel like you're on the stair machine forever to get to the top, right? But I've had some rough moments up there, even in the summertime, where in big time snow years, it'll keep snow up there in the summertime, and you'll get a white haze that will come over. You'll have a whiteout, and if you don't know which way you're walking, you can walk right off of that mountain. And I tell people all the time, if you think you're a badass glacier guy, do not go there in the winter unless you have someone to rope into and you both know what you're doing. Julian Sands, the actor, comes to mind. My wife is an actress. She knew the guy. He's a British actor. He went missing, 2 years ago? And everybody's like, where do you think he is? I said, they will find him when the snow melts, and they should look off of both sides. I didn't know where he was. I said, if he went up the route where you go up the backside, they'll find him somewhere there. Or if he went the Devil's Backbone in the snow, if you walk in either direction and slip by just a little bit, you have 1,000, maybe 1,500 feet on both sides. And that's it, right? And they found him in one of those two spots. I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
But when other people know where they're going to find you, that means you shouldn't be up there alone. Would you agree?
Yeah, mountains will kill you. And, the elevation change and the change in weathers, there's just so many different ways a mountain might kill you. And that one particular Mount Baldy, so many people are doing it there because it's so near L.A. It probably kills people every year, I believe.
I think it does. Yeah.
And like you said, winter is probably more dangerous, but it's summer, you can get winter conditions in the summer at the drop of the hat if the weather acts up. These mountains are to be taken seriously, and you're right. I like to hike alone, but I tend to do safer stuff. If it's something a little bit more sketchy, bad weather, or mountains climbing, you should go with somebody.
Yeah, especially that one, because you can leave on a hot, sunny day. I've had July. Actually, I sent a quick video to my mom about 4 years ago, because when I was a kid, my mom when I would ask for something, she'd go, that would be a cold day in July. I was up there in July, and it started sleeting on me. Yeah. And I took a quick video and sent it to my mom. Well, it's finally a cold day in July. You know. But, you don't realize you're in Southern California. Hell, I've had days in February right over on, what's the one? Mount Wilson. Have you ever done Wilson?
No.
Okay, Mount Wilson is so close. It's even before you get to Baldy, right? Right. As I always say, Dr. Drew Pinsky is a friend of mine. People go, where's Wilson? It's like, it's in Dr. Drew's backyard. And it goes up to 6,000 feet. So you can have a rainy, drizzly day, 65 degrees in L.A. When you get to the top of that, it's snowing. Yeah. Right? And I'll never forget all of these guys, everyone thinks they're Killian Jornet nowadays. Yeah, right. So they all take their shirts off and they go running with nothing but one little, water thing in their hand. Everyone's acting like Killian Jornet. And I was getting ready for Mont Blanc, and I was going up there on the Sunday, and I'm hiking along, and 2 or 3 different Killian Jornet wannabes passed me. And I didn't really notice. I should have noticed more on the way down. Right. Right. But I didn't. And that evening, I was having dinner with some friends and my wife, and the guy goes, yeah, where were you today? I said, over in Mount Wilson. He goes, a runner died up there today. Oh. And I said, on which side? And it was on the side that I was on. So one of the 3 people I saw, when it started snowing, he's in running shoes. Right? He didn't bring his little cat tracks with him or whatever, slipped right off the mountain and died. Oh. So it's never as innocent as you want it to be. Right. People don't respect it enough. Would you agree? Yeah, I agree. And as a park ranger, I've pulled more bodies out than I can count. And so it's hard for me sometimes when I see people not taking it serious. We want to have fun out there, but I would say have an expedition mindset. Just keep in mind your outdoor activity is an expedition, and so a safety plan, even if it's just a quick, what am I going to do if the weather turns south on me? Do I have a jacket? Even something as simple as that. Just have an expedition mindset out there. Yeah, and it's amazing how people don't notice things. A few years ago, I was climbing Whitney with my buddy. I'm not going to say his name. Well, it's Don. I'm sorry.
Don Cunnington's Friday, 5 o'clock.
Anyway, and we got separated. I was having some physical issues, and I got to that part where you can see the little hut on the top.
Yeah.
And, I said, Don, go tap out. I'm going to sit here and get some sun.
Yeah.
I'm nauseous from,
Yep.
something happened. Turns out my leukemia was probably coming back. But I'm going to just sit here. I've tapped out so many times. I can see the little hut from here. I'm good. I'm going to wait. And then I said, you know what? I don't want SARS to have to come out and grab my ass. I need to get to a lower altitude. I did the wrong thing. I started walking back down. And I said, I'm going to go far enough down. And I got to the switchbacks. I went down the switchbacks. I got to the bottom. Well, Don had come down. He didn't see me.
Yep.
So he starts walking in the opposite direction. Now, my jacket that I had on that day was only Italians like me would wear this jacket. It was like this light blue. It was made by Mammut. When it was light blue with the orange on the inside. So you can see the orange in the hoodie part of it and the whole thing. This is the loudest jacket I mean, Don is running down, stopping everyone. Hey, you see a guy in a light blue, older man, light blue jacket and the whole thing? No, don't know who you're talking about. It's like, how do you not notice I could tell you every person I saw on the way up that day, right? Chick that shouldn't be here. Guy who's slightly overweight. Guy who thinks he's Kylian Jornet. I could tell you all of them. Don can tell you all of them. Yet no one remembered the old Italian guy with the bright blue thing on until Don was halfway down the switchbacks and he sees the guy that we kept passing on the way up. And he goes, hey, have you seen my buddy? He goes, oh, the guy with the calves?
Yeah.
That's what you remember? My calves? No, the guy with the calves.
He's looking down, Vinny, at the trail, so he sees your calves.
Yeah, he sees my calves. So I'm like sitting there going, that's what you remember, the guy with the calves.
You got some damn calves, dude, if that's what they're remembering.
Listen, Andrea, I do have smoking calves, but that's neither here nor there. Now they're old man smoking calves, so they're not so high. But that's the one guy. And as a matter of fact, when Don got to that little area at the bottom of the switchbacks where, there's that little area where people camp, it's a high camp area. I mean, he was pissed. But he knew I was down there because the guy says the guy with the calves, he's on his way down. Because every inch I went down, I felt better. So it did have something to do with my blood.
Altitude, yeah.
And by the way, I've never had high altitude edema in any way, shape, or form. No headaches, no nothing. Mm-hmm. But boy, when your blood is not strong, I've had leukemia twice. So when your blood is not strong, shit happens.
That makes sense.
But I knew enough to go, I'm going to rest right here and then go down because otherwise I'm taking a helicopter out of here and I don't want SARS to show up.
Right.
That's an expensive date and I don't want to ride in a helicopter.
Right.
Right. So speaking of SARS, you've spent time with SARS. You talked about SARS a lot. Mm-hmm. Did you work with SARS? I know you were a nurse. You were also, it seems like you've done everything. You're a Swiss Army knife, Andrea.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like a rusted one that's been used a lot. Yeah. But I was a park ranger for 12 years at places like Yosemite and the Grand Canyon. So it's old experience. I'm 60 now. But my search and rescue background is extensive. From that time, I've rescued more people than I can count. I was a medic, so I responded to medical emergencies in the backcountry. Also, I was law enforcement and so would investigate those accidents as well. So, I do have a lot of SAR experience, but it's years ago.
How do you what makes someone like you motivated to do that? Is it because you love the outdoors and you want to help people, or because you get in with these families, these 3 families in the book, and it's like, wow, she seems to care more about this than they do, which I know is hard to believe, but you have this dogged way of not, you have a bone and you're not going to let go of it. Mm-hmm. Where does that come from? What happened to you to make you that person?
I don't know. I'm not sure. When I was a ranger, they would call me the bulldog because I would grab onto a case and I wouldn't let it go until I shook everything out of it. So I don't know. Maybe there's just something about my personality. But I do love working in the outdoors. I like to do the activities. So, you want to rescue people who got hurt doing something that you like to do. That's part of it. And, even just the camaraderie of it, you're with a team of people who are the challenge of it. You want to do this challenging, heroic thing together.
Yeah, that's the part that kept coming through in this book. It's like, wow, this woman won't give up. And you even you lament a few times where it's like, how do I let go of these people? If I show that I'm losing hope, they might lose hope. It was kind of that sentiment. Can you speak to that? Or
yes, and this is part of being human, I feel, Vinny. I'm a nurse, and I have experience also helping people with some very scary and tragic circumstances in the medical realm. And yeah, this is a tricky area because sometimes the person is going to die.
Right.
Or you're going to not find them, or you're going to find them passed away. And so, how do you want to be present with those people during that time where you don't want to be like you've lost hope. I'm having a hard time putting words to it, but this is a very profound time to be with people and to experience this together, some sort of tragedy. In a way that is supportive and with at least small comfort.
Have you ever walked the AT or the Pacific Coast Trail? Have you done?
Yes, I did the entire AT in 1999, and I've walked, maybe 400 or 500 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail.
You mentioned the book, The Wild. Of course, the famous book with the Danner shoe right there on the cover. And then the movie came out, Reese Witherspoon. You mentioned it in the book, but do you think it hurt more than it helped as far as people who are not prepared? Because, look, if you didn't read the book, if you just watched the movie, it looks like Reese Witherspoon just went, you know what? I'm buying a backpack, I'm getting some hiking shoes, and I'm going to just let it rip.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I like the book. I think Cheryl Stray did a wonderful storytelling job. And I like that it inspired people to want to do the Pacific Crest Trail. But it did play a role in maybe changing, our attitudes are changing in what we want for wilderness. It used to be more big, tough dudes and a few tough chicks, and we were going to challenge ourselves in the outdoors. With Wild, it became kind of along that same time, like we're going to go for a spiritual experience. We're going to redeem ourselves, get over our grief. And maybe that's great. I think wilderness can do that for people, but it's also still this challenging physical athletic thing you're trying to do. So you have to have both. And so Cheryl Stray, that book sometimes gets a bad rap, I think, but because I also think social media is really making these trails feel more accessible. People are watching YouTubes and Instagrams and going, well, if they did it, I can do it. And they feel like all I have to do is buy all the gear. I don't have to prepare mentally or physically. I can just buy all the gear. I can go out and do it.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the case.
I always call it all the gear, no idea. Right.
Yeah. I like that. I'm going to use it.
You can use it. People steal from this podcast all the time, but all the gear, no idea. You see it on the trail. You see REI showing up, right? And you're going, here we go. As a matter of fact, and this pissed off both me and my hiking partner. There's this new girl up on Whitney. Let's call her Libby because, well, that's her name. And Libby took over out there, and I'm sure she wants to do a good job and what have you. We're hiking along, and we see these 3 or 4 people pass us, and you could tell that they have experience.
Mm-hmm.
So being old men like both me and my partner Don, we have to stop and pee a lot. Prostates. Yeah. I'm sure you're married, right? You have a husband?
Yeah, I think I have to stop and pee more than he does, though.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I do have a husband. Yeah.
Have you perfected the standing up pee like my wife has?
No, I still squat. It's good for my glutes, I think.
Yeah, my wife does because she became an ultra runner for a while, for about 10 years, and they figure out how to just stand up and do it.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's it's a thing. Anyway, I don't know how we keep getting to urine and crap, but there we are. Anyway, Don and I have to stop every 5 inches and pee. And so we see these guys pass us, and they're trekking along. And then all of a sudden, there's this woman that is coming up. She's a bit heavy set, a bit disheveled. She's got brand new hiking boots on, and which is never a good idea on a trail like that.
Yeah, right.
And her backpack is shiny and new.
Yeah.
And she's struggling along, and she says, "Have you guys seen?" It's like, "Oh yeah, they passed us about 5 minutes ago. They're about 5 minutes up the trail." And she's like, "Oh," and disheveled, and her pack is not on her correctly.
Yeah.
And I said, we said, "Well, where are you guys going?" It's like, "Well, we're camping here, and then we're going to hit the summit tomorrow. We're doing it in 2 spots and all thing." And she's talking about how the pack is not fitted right. And Don and I was like, "Well, who fitted you for this pack?"
Right.
And she goes, "Oh, it was in a sales bin at REI." And it's like, well, that's problem number one.
Right.
This is made for a guy that's 6'4", not a short, stocky one. And I said, "You know what? Here, let's help you. We can, and we're like pulling on the straps and trying to get it to fit so the hip strap can be somewhere where it needs to be and get the tension on. We're explaining you have to get the tension on your hips and you have to get it off of this. And how did you pack your bag? Did anyone tell you to put the heavier stuff in the bottom?" We're giving her the stuff. She goes, "Thank you. No one told me any of that." And then Libby comes down the trail and looks at us as if we're going to rape this woman because we're tugging on straps and trying to fix her and do this whole thing. 2 old men trying to help. And she literally says to us, "What's going on here?" And it's like trying to help out a fellow hiker.
Right.
"Ma'am, do you want help? Did you need?" And I'm
my gosh.
"What do you think is going on?" And of course, she shoved her off and said, no, these guys are trying to help me out here. It's like, what did you think we were doing? What do you think 2 old men are doing here with this poor woman who's completely disheveled?
Right.
But there's that, right? There's that version of it where it can just ruin your whole day.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, But yeah, you see all the gear and no idea all the time, and you just know that these people are going to need help, and you need to watch them along the way.
Yeah, right. She had friends. They should have been teaching her this if she had more experienced friends. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I felt like. I guess they figured, hey, she's going to catch up. Maybe they had enough of her. But, how can you have enough of someone who's not even on the trail? You're not even at the switchbacks yet. You had enough of her already? What's that all about? Yeah,
no. It's not cool. I'd run into that Ranger or Grand Canyon and go, stay with your party.
Yeah.
If they're having trouble, you have to stay with them. You brought them. They're your responsibility. Your party is your responsibility. Now, experienced hikers, like you said, every once in a while, experienced hiker says, hey, I'm going to go forward. You want to communicate properly. But if you have an inexperienced person in your party, you have to stay with them. That is a rule. And if you don't, that person needs a walkie-talkie on them. We still use the old walkie-talkie system, and we now all have that Garmin, the little orange thing, something 2. What's it called? Let's give it a plug. So there's the Garmin InReach and the Mini. Okay, I have the Mini one. I think is the Mini called the Mini 2? It might be the Mini 2 now. Yeah. Folks, if you don't know what you're doing, or even if you let me go back. If you know what you're doing. Yes, it's $300-400. Get it. It will save your life. Yeah. I'm older now. I carry it in the kayak with me. I carry it. It sounds like an old tampon commercial. I carry it when I'm rowing, when I'm hiking, when I'm in a kayak. I just keep it with me all the time. Why not? Right? Yeah. If something happens, I have a heart attack, something happens, at least they could find where I am because that beacon is on at all times. Yeah. Right? It's not, $400. Well, look, if you can't spend that, you shouldn't be out there doing it, especially if you're going to go hiking on your own. And that was another thing that I was thinking about in the book. It's like these people are spending hundreds of dollars on backpacks, on sleeping pads, on sleeping bags just put on top of the sleeping pad, on you name it. But they don't buy that one device.
Why? As a matter of fact, that one device, I don't know if you know that. Well, you know this, but the audience won't. If you get in a dire situation where your cell phone won't pick up, your cell phone will work through that device to get you SOS. It will get you help.
Yeah.
Why doesn't every hiker have that device?
Yeah, I was on the JMT, John Muir Trail, north of Whitney this August, and I was going to do a 7-day trip. And the first day of the trip, one of my crowns came out, eating a power bar. And so, but I had that device, so through my phone, I was able to text my husband. No cell service, 000.
Yeah.
But I was able to tell him, make me an appointment with the dentist for when I get out. And I felt like that device just earned its keep right there. Because, it's hard to get an appointment. It would have been like another week I'd gone without a crown. So, yeah, they're very handy. Also, in the Boundary Waters, I was getting weather reports through it. No cell service, but I could get a weather report through that device.
Yeah, they're worth their weight in gold. I feel like I'm doing a big ad for Garmin. I wear a lot. My wife is into Garmin because she was an ultra runner. So we end up with a lot of Garmin stuff. Our dogs, I have a dog, the long distance dog devices, for hunting dogs. You put the thing on their neck, works like a charm, right? You can look at the device and see exactly where your dog is out in the wilderness. Yeah. You can go find him. Yeah. We can beep him, he's on, we hit the beeper, he comes back. Yeah. It's a honing device. But, why wouldn't everyone not have that product? Is what I always say. So every true hiker, like if I was going to even do a portion of the AT, right? Let's say I wanted to do 100 miles of the AT next spring. Why wouldn't anyone have that device? You're buying everything else.
Yeah. I mean, they are expensive. The subscription is rather expensive, about $15 a month. You can play with it though, where you only pay for the time you're out.
I pay for the time I'm out. I cut it off in between. No, I keep it on a lower subscription when I'm just paddling. But when I go out to the thing, kick it up to the big subscription, and you can drop it back down again. You don't have to keep it going.
You know what? Anybody that's listening, you got especially a young person that doesn't have a lot of money that likes to do this stuff. This is a great Christmas present for them. Yeah.
If someone's into the outdoors, get them this device. I feel like I'm really doing a big time ad.
Garmin needs to sponsor both of us, I think.
Write that down. Get me and you sponsorship. That's a nice question. Where are you living now, Andrea?
I live in Columbia. It's it's in the foothills of the Sierra, not too far from Yosemite National Park.
We got to make it a plan to get together and do a little hiking. Right now, my buddy and I are working on something called Project 10.
Yeah.
And Project 10 is we want to do, as John Muir calls it, the soft and succulent route, the switchback route. We want to do it in 10 hours. We've never done it. We've always done the lazy, 12, 13, 14 hours. It took us 18 hours, not this summer, last summer, because it was the summer with the when the snow stayed on the mountain and you had to post hold. Like the switchbacks were not, you couldn't see them.
Right.
And the biggest fear at that time was, will this slush come down in an avalanche and kill us at some point?
Right. Yeah.
We made it. The part that scared me that year was, we had to glissade down, and no one else knew how to glissade.
Right.
Which, again, that's a simple skill you should learn.
Yeah.
Before, they were holding their axe with the axe part down, trying to use. Yeah. It's like, no. It was the opposite. It's like you could have stopped at Big Willie's Mountaineer right there in Lone Pine, and Blair would have shown you how to use the axe you probably just bought from Blair.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy that people buy equipment and they don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
It all drives me nuts, but we need to stay in touch and do a little hiking. Maybe you could do Project 10 with us.
Okay.
10 hours, baby. Come on.
You're climbing Whitney in 10 hours? Is that what Project 10 is?
Well, yeah, it's to do it. We want to go daylight to daylight, right? We always leave in dark and come back in daylight. It's like, let's do daylight to daylight. Mm-hmm. And the object is going to probably take 11 or 12 hours. But if we shoot for 10 hours, we're still getting back at daylight in time to have a cheap hamburger that.
Yeah.
Do you know Crazy Jack? Do you know who Crazy Jack is?
No.
Look up Crazy Jack later on. He's done Whitney, I want to say 215 or 16 times now.
Man.
And my buddy, we've gotten to know Crazy Jack. My buddy actually climbed with him last year because I was busy with chemo and everything. So my buddy ended up climbing with him. And then another buddy climbed it with him the year before. You know, but Crazy Jack is like the man up there. He knows all the shortcuts off the trail and what have you, which he won't just show to anybody because they don't want that to become the new trail.
Yeah, right.
So you got to keep those little spots secret. I want to do the 10-hour thing without taking the shortcuts. I want to take every switchback to prove that, you know, you can walk it, not have to run it, and do it in 10 hours. So.
Good. Project 10.
You're in? Are you in? Can I mark you down for 1 or 2? Is your husband coming?
Maybe I'll backpack up the backside and meet you guys at the top. Not the top, but you know that saddle before. Yeah,
the saddle before you get to the top where you're looking over at guitar.
Then I'll go back and backpack and have some hot chocolate, enjoy the lake that evening. I like to spend the night out there.
Wait a minute. Maybe. Well, no, we can't do it on Project 10, but if I could get 2 passes, maybe on the second pass, we could come up, go over the saddle, go down with you, and hang out with you for an evening.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Have some coffee, talk about old times.
Yeah.
You know, I've never done the backside. I've never been down that John Muir Trail.
That's the way I did it. I came in on the backside when they did the John Muir Trail in 1997. I came up the backside, you know, with my backpack, full pack.
Yeah.
I loved it.
What are you carrying, 50, 60 pounds?
No, I think back then it might have been around 40 pounds because I had a lot of food. You know, I had to go for days with food. These days I try to be more around 25 pounds. Yeah,
you could do things a lot lighter. The equipment has gotten so much better. I mean, think about what we were carrying back in the 90s compared to now. You know, back when we all went to a place called A16 versus REI, which didn't really exist.
Right.
Yeah. And Andrea, I could talk to you all day. But the audience is getting bored now because we're just talking amongst ourselves. Folks, go check the book out. Trail of the Lost. It kept me intrigued the entire time. My mind never wandered. You're into this book every inch of the way. I'm going to now go read Ranger Confidential because she stole it from the same place I stole Fitness Confidential from. And I'm going to go read that next. I'm going to download that now as soon as we're done here. Andrea, hang on because we have to wait till this uploads or something. I don't really know. By the way, were you able to hear the music at the beginning?
Not the first one, but the second time I did.
Okay. So you weren't supposed to hear it. So we're going to finish up on another song that reminds me of hiking for some. Oh, we didn't even get into the Camino de Santiago. Did you ever do that?
No, I haven't done that.
Me either. My wife and I talk about doing it all the time, but I got to retire first.
Look at New Zealand, Milford Track and Rockburn Track.
I spent time in New Zealand.
Also, I hear Tasmania. It's a good place.
Tasmania is a great town, too. That's a great island. I've been to Tasmania and New Zealand, but that was just not a hiking trip. I need to go back.
Yeah, go as a hiking trip. I loved it. And I got Tasmania on my list because the people there told me that I should check that out.
I have friends in Tasmania. They were in my first documentary, doctor and his wife that lived there. So I need to go check that out. Folks, go get these books. They're going to be in the Vinny Book Club by the time this comes out. So you can go right to VinnyTortories.com. That book club goes right to Amazon. You can get the book right there. The book is called, once again, Trail of the Lost. Go get it. And when you're at Amazon, you know what to do. Before you go there, go to VinnyTortories.com, click through the banner. On behalf of Andrea, Andy, Lankford, my name is Vinny Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with this cool group back from my high school days.
you for listening to Fitness Confidential. Get more information at VinnyTortorich.com. Remember to rate and review us on iTunes and follow Vinny on Instagram and Twitter.